Okay, so hey guys and welcome back to another Sport This Week video, and in today's video I've got basketball, baseball, tennis, football, cricket, NFL, boxing and UFC news. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So starting off this week, I'm going to start off with the tennis news, and it was the Bavarian International Tennis Championships where Zverev lost 2-0 versus Rune, and it was also the Madrid Open, where Sabalenka lost 2-1 versus Anisimova. Sabalenka and Badoza lost 2-0 versus Gauff and Pegula. Osaka won 2-0 versus Potapova. Rune won via retirement versus Van der Zandschulp to win the Bavarian International men's doubles tennis championships. And Osaka lost 2-0 versus Sorribes Tormo to win the women's singles Madrid Open. And yeah, that is all the tennis news. Moving on to the football news now. Palace drew 0-0 versus Leeds. Man City won 4-3 versus Real Madrid. Udinese won 4-0 versus Fiorentina. Bologna won 2-1 versus Inter. Liverpool won 2-0 versus Villarreal. Klopp signed contract extension with Liverpool. Pardew is the new CSKA Sofia manager. Man U drew 1-1 versus Chelsea. Frankfurt won 2-1 versus West Ham. Leipzig won 1-0 versus Rangers. Feyenoord won 3-2 versus Marseille. Leicester drew 1-1 versus Roma. Ranić is Austria manager. Liverpool won 1-0 versus Newcastle. Napoli won 6-1 versus Sassuolo. Bochum won 4-3 versus Dortmund. Mainz won 3-1 versus Bayern. Burnley won 2-1 versus Watford. Brighton won 3-0 versus Wolves. Villa won 2-0 versus Norwich, meaning that Norwich are now relegated again. Man City won 4-0 versus Leeds. Palace won 2-1 versus Southampton. Bilbao won 2-0 versus Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid won 4-0 versus Espanyol to win La Liga. Spurs won 3-1 versus Leicester. Milan won 1-0 versus Fiorentina. Everton won 1-0 versus Chelsea. Arsenal won 2-1 versus West Ham. Inter won 2-1 versus Udinese. Celtic drew 1-1 versus Rangers. And Lyon won 3-0 versus Marseille. And yeah, that is all the football news. Moving on to the baseball news now. Giants won 4-2 versus Brewers. Red Sox drew 6-2 versus Blue Jays. Dodgers won 4-0 versus Diamondbacks. Yankees won 12-8 versus Orioles. Red Sox lost 6-5 versus Blue Jays. Dodgers lost 5-3 versus Diamondbacks. Giants won 8-2 versus Athletics. Dodgers lost 3-1 versus Diamondbacks. Yankees won 5-2 versus Orioles. Red Sox won 7-1 versus Blue Jays. Giants lost 1-0 versus Athletics. Yankees won 10-5 versus Orioles. Red Sox lost 1-0 versus Blue Jays. Red Sox won 3-1 versus Orioles. Yankees won 12-2 versus Orioles. Dodgers won 5-1 versus Tigers. Giants lost 14-4 versus Nationals. Giants won 9-3 versus Nationals. Red Sox lost 2-1 versus Orioles. Yankees won 3-0 versus Royals. Dodgers lost 5-1 versus Tigers. Yankees won 6-4 versus Royals. Red Sox lost 9-5 versus Orioles. Giants lost 11-5 versus Nationals, and Dodgers won 6-3 versus Tigers. And yeah, that is all the baseball news. Moving on to the basketball news now. Heat won 110-86 versus Hawks. Celtics won 116-112 versus Nets. 76ers won 103-88 versus Raptors. Heat won 97-94 versus Hawks. Bulls lost 116-100 versus Bucks. 76ers won 132-97 versus Raptors. And Celtics lost 101-89 versus Bucks. And yeah, that is the end of the basketball news. But yeah, that is the continuation of the playoffs. Moving on to the second round of the playoffs, where some of them games were the first games of the second round. And so yeah, we'll see what happens in the rest of the playoffs. Moving on now to the cricket news, where Stokes is the new Test team captain. Just thought I'd mention that, going from Root to Stokes. But yeah, that is all the cricket news. Moving on to the rugby news, where England women won 24-12 versus France women to win the Women's Six Nations, again winning it. I didn't really mention any of the scores of any of the other Women's Six Nations games, but I thought I might as well mention the actual winning score. So congratulations to England women. Moving on to the NFL news now, where this week it was the NFL Draft. I'm just going to say a couple of the bits that happened before. Eagles trading for Brown and Cardinals trading for Brown. Two separate Browns, not the same person. But yeah, there was the NFL Draft, and I'm just going to say where the top 10 prospects went, because if I was going to go through each and every single round, I'd be here for a long time just going through every single player. So I'm going to say where the top 10 prospects went. Sorry if this isn't your top 10 prospects or something like that, or if I mispronounce any of the names. It's one that I've got off Google, and I'm not very good at pronouncing names. You should know that at this point. Okay, let's start. So, Karlaftis is joining Chiefs, Williams joining Lions, Hamilton joining Ravens, Thibault, I don't know if I pronounced that right. I don't know why I have to go into a French accent to do that. Is joining Giants, Neal joining Giants, Ekwonu joining Panthers, Gardner joining Jets, Cross joining Seahawks, Stingley Jr. joining Texans, and Hutchinson joining Lions. And yeah, that is all the NFL news. Obviously, there was a lot more draft-related stuff that happened, but like I said, if I was to go through each one, it would take a long time. Moving on to the UFC now. Arlovsky won by decision versus Collier. I don't know how he's still fighting. He's been fighting for so long. Vera won by decision versus Rob Font, which was a pretty decent upset, to be fair. And it was the 100th fight night, which was them fights were on. And Qatar will fight Emmett on the 18th of June. And yeah, that is all the UFC news. Moving on to the boxing news now. Taylor won via split decision versus Serrano to remain lightweight world champion, which was the first ever women's pay-per-view, I'm pretty sure, for boxing, or at least the biggest ever. Smith won via TKO in round 10 versus Vargas to become vacant World Boxing Organization Intercontinental Super Welterweight champion. Yafai won via stoppage in round 2 versus Cartagena to remain WBC International Champion. Stevenson won by unanimous decision versus Valdez to become WBC and WBO World Super Featherweight Champion. And yeah, that is all the news for this week. Hope you did enjoy. There will be 3 predictions next week, plus my first ever women's prediction for a fight. I'm going to start predicting women's fights now, because I saw the Taylor versus Serrano fight, and I thought I probably should have predicted that realistically. And now it's inspired me to predict more. So I'm going to be back with the Rose Namajunas, or I think I've just butchered the name, but I'll try to get a name somewhat better said for when I actually predict the fight, plus the Canelo fight and the Oliveira fight this week. So yeah, hope you look forward to that. And yeah, I hope you did enjoy the video. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.